All right, from hand, we're going to do make a box and whisker plot. Okay, so again, we're going to do this from hand. Let's say we have a group of 10 students, and I'm going to list their heights in order in inches. So we have one student that's 4'11", 59 inches. Another that's 61, a 5'1", another 5'1". So we have a 5'3", 5'4", 5'7", 5'8", another 5'8". 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll say we have one that's 6 foot and 6'3". So kind of a variety there. So let's make a box and whisker plot and talk about the concepts there. So with the box and whisker plot, we need 5 points of data. All right, now, of course, calculator will do a lot of this for you, understand that, but what we want to find is the minimum, the lower quartile, which is often called Q1, the median, the upper quartile, it's often called Q3, or Q2 would be the median, and the maximum. Okay, those are the 5 points that are going to get reflected by the box and whisker plot. So the minimum here is the shortest person. It's going to be 59. The maximum is going to be the tallest person, that's 75. Let's go and look at the median, which we've discussed before. If you're on the box whisker plot, you've probably talked about how to find a median. There's an even amount of data, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I know I have 5 on each side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right in there is my median, that line. Well, it would be halfway between 64 and 67, or the average of 64 and 67. Okay, that's going to be 64 plus 67 divided by 2, which you'll find to be 65.5. Remember, the purpose of the median is to find that point to where you know half the remaining group is, or in this case, half the class exactly, is shorter than that. Half the class is taller than that. So if you want to know if you're in the shorter half or the taller half, you look at the median. Now, what about the lower quartile and the upper quartile? Well, they're very similar. The lower quartile would be the median of the lower half. Okay, and it's a little bit of confusion around the median here. In this particular case, the median was not on the list. We'll talk about in a minute what happens if the median was pulled from the list. But the median was not on the list, makes it actually a little less confusing or a little clearer. So the first half would be this half right here. What is the median of that? That's Q1. Okay, so ignore those numbers. The median, it's going to be that number, isn't it? 61. And by now you figured out that the Q3 would be this guy. All right, the median of the upper half. Okay. Note that, and this bothers people because they start thinking about football games, having 4 quarters and such. The median usually is not exactly halfway between the quartiles. The reason for that is that the quartiles and the median are based on position, not value so much. Okay, they're ranked. This is the middle position. This is the first quarter position and the third quarter position. Now, of course, the positions are ranked by their values, but there could be a bigger gap here than here, even though both are only 2 down. And maybe we're spread out more over here, for example. But that's all we need. Once we have these 5 numbers, then we can draw our box and whisker. So the first problem is coming up with those 5 numbers. Again, I know many people is just going to say, hey, look, I can do it on a calculator. I'm sure you can. People are going to tell you different things here, but just a bit of advice. I'll go back and forth here. you're going to want to scale down here. And people get confused on drawing good scales. We go from 59 to 75. What we need, it takes a little experience to get this. We need to kind of cap it with a number a little smaller, or this is my preference, a little smaller than the smallest number, so 55, and a little bigger than the biggest number, so 80. I think it's a good idea to have to go beyond your box and whisker plot on both sides. And then we need a nice even increment. Sometimes people get confused. All right, so back to it here. So 55 to 80. Yeah, but we do need to make a good scale here. And what you don't want to do, common misconception, is for folks just to start listing, everybody's height here on this. I say, okay, 59, 61, they'll put a 59 and they'll put a 61 and a 61. That's not what you want to do here. What you want instead is to make, have yourself a few, but not too many marks. I know that's kind of a subjective thing to say, but for me, I'm going to go by 5. I'm going to go 60, try to evenly space it, make it look nice. 70, 75. I'll make it 80 right there. I could have maybe went by 3s or something. But this here, you have a handful, I would say, between, 5 to 10 marks. You don't want 20 marks down here and get all cluttered, but at the same time, you don't want it to help to have more than 2 or 3, because then you can't tell where the dots are. But we have this scale. Again, the characteristics of the scale, you're a little bit bigger, smaller than the small value. You're a little bit bigger than the largest value, and you have something like 5 to 10 marks here. You don't have too many. You don't want to just list these down through here. The minimum was 59. So what we do is put a dot right here for 59. So we're right there. The lower quartile is 61. So I'm going to put a dot there. I'm going to keep putting dots for each of these, just approximating where they are. 68 and 75. Okay, so notice I approximated, and that's reasonably close. When it comes to box and whisker plot, you're looking at sort of trends. You don't necessarily care exactly where the median is. You do when you make it, but if you're an observer of a box and whisker plot, you just want to kind of get a feel for where the numbers are. So you have these 5 dots. So what we do is make a whisker, which is sort of a horizontal line here. Okay, and then we make the box, and the box extends between Q1 and Q3. Okay, between our second and fourth dot. For this middle dot where the median is, I'm just going to make a slash in the middle of the box. And then we have this last whisker. Okay, so to be clear, this is the minimum. And you're not going to see those labels, but that's the minimum. This is the maximum. Q1, the median, and Q3. Okay. And what it does is gives you an idea, kind of the data. I can see quickly that the middle 50% of the data, and we'll talk about this in a minute, it's between the low 60s to high 60s. So the 60s basically is the middle. If you're below 60, which we have some kind of compact data here because it's a short whisker. If you're in the low 60s or high 50s, you're in the lower quarter. But if you're on into the 70s, you're on the taller people. You can tell that very quickly just looking at it. There is a little formula here, very simple, called the Interquartile Range. Okay, often we say IQR for short. Very easy formula. It's just Q3 minus Q1. The overall range is max minus min. IQR is Q3 minus Q1. So for this particular problem, so Q3 again was 68. Q1 is 61. So my IQR here is 7.